My name is Peter Kenes. I arrived in the United States from Hungary when I was 19. The next week I was a student at Princeton. After Princeton, I got a PhD at Harvard and was hired as a professor of history at UC Santa Cruz. I was among the first tenants of Stevenson when it opened in 1966. This is my first and only job. I stick to things. I was born on April 5, 1937, and lived in Pest-Szent-Erzsébet, a suburb of Budapest. Budapest is really two cities. Buda is on the hills, and Pest lies along the Danube River. My suburb was on the Pest side. On March 19th, 1944, a Sunday, my father, my cousin, and I went for a hike. As we were walking through the hills of Buda, we suddenly saw a whole armada of airplanes coming toward us. We knew it was bad news. By the time we got back, Germany had begun its occupation of Hungary. The next day, my father was coming home from his job at my grandfather's printing press in Budapest. He had begun medical school in Vienna in the 20s because they passed the numerus clausus laws in Hungary, according to which the Jews were not permitted to be enrolled in larger percentage in the university than they were in the population. That day, the Nazis blocked commuters coming home to the suburbs, and Jews were immediately sent to Hungarian holding camps, eventually to be sent to Auschwitz. My father managed to send information until the end of April 1944. We found out only later from János Vázsonyi, a fellow prisoner at Auschwitz, what had happened to him. He survived the camp from May until November, when he was forced to march to Austria with the retreating Germans. He was shot and killed in January 1945. I assume because of exhaustion prevented him from keeping pace with the march. During occupation, the Nazis divided Hungary into districts, and Jews were deported district by district to Auschwitz. Budapest was to be the last. After my father was taken, my mother moved us into Budapest with my grandmother and the cousin, a move that saved our lives. The little neighbor boys in my suburb were soon sent to Auschwitz because Pest-Erzsébet was forcefully evacuated of Jews before the city. I was 7 in 1944. One sunny afternoon, we were taken out of our home. I remember holding my hands up. We heard submachine gun fire. Both my mother and I thought we were going to be massacred. My mother was holding my hand, and we were saying goodbye to each other. We waited quietly for our turn. But they took us to a synagogue. We spent there 3 nights, and then they said, "You can go home." In retrospect, one can explain anything and everything. Do I believe it? No. I was never young. I skipped that stage. Yes, even as a 7-year-old, I knew what was going on. I got scarlet fever. They put a red piece of paper on the door of my apartment, so the Nazis were afraid to come in. Other people came in to hide where we were, in the cellar of the apartment building. They gave me opium, the only available medicine. So I was in a kind of feverish haze. Ironically, the apartment complex became an improvised field hospital, so I found myself in a hospital with scarlet fever, and I haven't even moved. There were, I don't know how many people sleeping on top of the coal in the cellar. Some relatives, some friends, some I didn't know. They were doing amputation, and severed limbs were piling up in the courtyard of the building. At the end of December, Budapest was under siege, and we had no electricity. A bomb destroyed the building next to ours and broke the water main, so we were also without water. I saw my first Russian soldier on January 17th, 1945, when our building was liberated. I'm an optimist because ever since 1945, my life is getting better and better. I say to my wife I don't like beets, because during the siege all we had to eat was beets. This is phony. I'm making it up. I just happen not to like beets. There was also onion, and I love onion. Life is random. We just try to impose order on it from the outside.